Hello and welcome to the glorious return of Lughs Den. Today we've got Kyle Hunt. How's it going, Kyle?
It's going pretty well. Lou, how you doing?
I'm pretty good. We just kind of threw this together at the last minute. I didn't really get a chance to set up the show this week. I was moving and I was pretty busy at school, but hopefully we can get into some good topics tonight.
Yeah. I just did a show with Delcroix from awakeradio.co.uk a couple hours ago, and discussed some of the same kind of topics we talk about. He's got a show. He's from Ireland. It's a pretty damn good show, and had a good number of good guests on there. So I did that, and I thought, hey, I might as well just make this something of a marathon. Can talk to Lou tonight and hopefully get another good conversation going.
Yeah, we seem to have good conversations. Doing a lot of radio lately.
Yeah. I'd like to get back into some of the more esoteric shows that people who have been listening for a while know me for. But to be honest, until we can take care of the very basic but important issues, those are almost irrelevant to a certain degree. I'd like to be able to just eventually have so many people aware of these issues that we're talking about now that it's almost taken for granted that I don't even need to talk about it. You guys know about it. It's the Jews.
Yeah,
and then move forward, you know.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people talking about the more basic things now, and so I mean we can move forward and hit some of these esoteric topics, because one advantage that we can have is this natural sort of Gnostic druidic ability that we all have, and we need to get that back, I think, if we can win this.
Sure, yeah, that's a good point. You know, if those kinds of shows aren't, I guess, as unimportant as I was making it seem, because once you're able to better come to terms with how our reality is constructed, how we are manipulated at a very deep subconscious level, then the programming is not as effective, and we're much more easily able to create the kind of world that we'd like to see. I just basically meant that there are so many people still out there in the alternative media realm who think it's satanic Nazis who are running the shows. So, really, until we can get some more of those people up to speed, I'm going to continue to do some of these shows, concerning the Third Reich, concerning nationalism, concerning Jewish power in media, banking, government, etc.
Well, it's good to have this extra platform for that, and hopefully doing some new interviews. I'm going to try to track down all these sort of people in the movement that aren't really sort of affiliated with this sort of area, and sort of these old professors and things like this, and try to interview them and move things forward. I want to try to get Kai Miros or Kevin McDonald or people like that on. I think
you're gonna get a chimera on?
No, Kai Miros, he's this National Socialist.
Okay.
From Finland or something.
I thought you were trying to get on a mythical half man, half beast.
A spider goat.
Oh yeah, that's right. Chimeras are actually not half man, and they're usually just a mix of different animals. That's right.
No, it was like a lion with a snake tail. It had some other things. I think it had wings too. Eagle wings.
I guess just technically, it's a single organism that is made up of two or more different genetically distinct organisms.
Yeah, I guess you could call it that. But
okay, or a she-goat. I'm seeing here. There's actually a chimera in genetics, which is more of a technical term. In any event, sorry to get you down that down the chimera road. That's just what I thought you said.
That's important too. They're really pushing that as well, and all these GMO babies and stuff that they're talking about now.
Yeah,
there's a couple of them around already.
Yeah, it's going to be the designer baby coming up soon now as well. They're trying to. I've seen different initiatives to basically. What are they trying to do? They're trying to make it so that they weed out the aggressive gene in humans, so that they're just not prone to fight, more submissive. One of the things that they wanted to do to fight climate control, fight climate change was control the height of humans born, so that they're shorter, so they take up less resources. It makes me think of the deltas or the gammas from Brave New World. And definitely not the designer babies in terms of trying to get the best traits of man involved in them. They're going to be obviously trying to create the perfect slave race with these new babies coming out, I think.
Yeah, and Paris Hilton will get one, and it'll be all over.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be great. It'll be a black baby with blue eyes and totally multiculti and stuff.
Anyway, so, oh yeah, by the way, congratulations to the state of Palestine. Apparently they recently had a UN vote. They're now at the same level as Vatican City in the UN, so that's pretty weird.
Well, yeah, it's obviously the Palestinians and the Vatican who are running the show. Pallywood has been putting out all of this pro-Palestinian media for years and years and years. By Pallywood, I mean Hollywood. That group that's just always been shilling for the Arabs. Yeah, Pallywood is the reason why 138 countries voted in favor of Palestine.
Yeah, and speaking of brown babies with blue eyes, that's actually something you commonly see in Palestine. And if you look at the Palestinian genetics, they're actually closer to Europeans than they are to Arabs. If you look at the genetic markers, I'll post in the show notes.
Yeah, they're actually a lot. They're a lot of redheads.
Yeah, they have blonde and red hair all the time. They have very light skin, and they'll have very light eyes. And European features as well, because this is what sort of Europeans were pretty common in the Levant, through Egypt and all this, and through you see it in northern Iran and northern India as well.
Yeah, Joe, he goes by No Brave New World as his handle on YouTube. Joe had mentioned to me that when he was over in Iraq, he would come across these children who looked like they were, just down the road from his neighborhood, curly reddish hair and freckles, and you'll see this in Afghanistan as well, all over the Middle East and into India. And I think that one of the reasons that is not really brought to our attention is that over here in the West is that there is actually, even though a lot of people don't want to admit it, they've been taught to ignore it. There is a racial consciousness in that you see those who are more like yourself and you're able to be more empathetic or sympathetic toward their plight, because it's really like you're seeing your kin being abused. Now, obviously, you shouldn't allow abuse to happen to anyone, regardless if they're dark Palestinians or light. But I just mean that that's probably one of the reasons why we're not shown these faces of Palestine or the faces of Iraq that look a lot like our own, because the soldiers of the West, or the people that support these wars, are more easily able to kind of dehumanize them or distance them from their own culture, from their own cultural background of what they view civilization to be like.
Yeah, and I do think there's these Gnostic enclaves in the Middle East, as well as there's supposed to be a big one in Afghanistan, actually, and it was in right next to one of the big bases. I think it was Kandahar, around that area. And you see them going into these mountains and just flushing everybody out. Mm-hmm. And these are the Gnostics. These are the people who thought Yahweh was evil and stuff like that, right? And they very well might be connected with the more Aryan ones as well, because we see that um, the old Persian religions were just like the Vedic religions, and this is sort of what Abrahamism, so anti-Brahmanism is all about.
Yes, somebody in the chat's asking me how to explain the war on Serbia. Yeah, no, I'm just saying for public relations, they don't want to show that they're over there killing Aryan children. But that's what the different conflicts in the Middle East have been doing for quite some time. Actually, I think that perhaps that is one of the main goals of some of these conflicts, is to hunt down certain genetic families, especially perhaps the Rh negative bloodline, which is fairly predominant in Iraq, and eradicate some of them. And Serbia, quite a travesty. There's a lot of anti-Serbian people currently in power in the United States, and they're kind of a darker version of the Aryan, like Nikola Tesla, who was a Serb, with his dark hair and blue eyes.
Well, you see people in the Mediterranean, like, you're eventually going to acquire these darker features, just because,
of course,
just because the way evolution works. But I mean, originally, I think they were even from. If you read Tilak, he was a Vedic scholar. Read the Arctic Home in the Vedas, he actually postulates that the Aryans were originally from the North Pole.
The Celtic Rebel is saying that the war in Serbia was about killing Orthodox Christians, and that could very well be the case. It seems to be the case.
Yeah, the crimes they did against the Russian Orthodox Church by the communists. I mean, they fed priests to each other. I'm not overstating that at all. They fed them into each other. And they put the worst atrocities on them than anyone else. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Something that I find interesting is that a lot of men in Pakistan, as they get older, will dye their beards red. Now, the reason I've been able to find for this is because Jews will dye their beards black, and they don't like the Jews, so they chose to use henna, which will dye it red. I think it goes a lot deeper.
That's actually because Muhammad was said to be red-haired.
Well, and I was getting to the point that a lot of the people who were in those areas long ago, and perhaps the ones who are bringing them the culture that they have now, which I guess would include Muhammad, were red-headed, and in particular red-bearded, because people oftentimes will have darker hair or even lighter hair and then end up with a big red beard. And the Middle Americas and South America were also said to have been civilized by a tribe of red-bearded people.
That's
as
another
well.
thing. That's another thing. When people talk about these evil white nationalists, but the ancient Aryans, they went around the world and uplifted other cultures. They weren't like, we're the master race. We're like, let's teach these guys how to fish, type of thing, right? And people respected them for it and hold them in high regard. That's why they hold them in high regard.
Right. Well, that's why the Mayans were expecting the return of their gods. When they saw the Spaniards, they mistook them because they looked a bit like them. And these obviously were much crueler gods they experienced the second time around. But they obviously had a great deal of respect, held these the ancient Aryans in a very high regard. And if you look at the actual story of Kukulkan or Quetzalcoatl, these were, it seems at first, it was an actual person who was then turned into something of a title, and then later on it was turned into a myth, a god figure, and they were said to, these gods were said to have been the ones who actually ended the practice of human sacrifice. instead of instituting it, like I don't know, probably David Icke would want you to believe, oh, it's the reptilians, oh, it's the feathered serpent. Look, they're shape-shifting reptilians who are consuming people. No, they
Yeah,
were.
Giuliani thinks that that some sort of Jewish power came over um, to the South America afterwards, and that very well could be true, and because there's reference to that, and they could have came along afterwards, because they've always been sort of the enemy of them. Because if you look at the legends of Yahweh and all these different myths, like for example, in the Vedic myths, I forget his name, Ahriman, and like he slew the serpent and freed the waters, and then the Abrahamic myth says that God punished the world with water.
Yeah, well, the Abrahamic myth is it's very confusing for people, because what they did with the Torah, with the Old Testament, is that they combined the Sumerian gods, the brothers, sons of Anu, who were Enki and Enlil. They combined them basically into one god who they named Jehovah. So he seems like he's incredibly bipolar or schizophrenic, because they've taken these two different figures and turned them into one. Whereas Enlil wanted to destroy the earth because Enki had created basically powerful hybrids, offspring of the gods, who were not the slaves that Enlil had wanted. Enlil then wanted to flood the earth. He wanted to destroy it, and Enki wanted to save what he could, so that the earth could be repopulated, and then war could be waged against Enki afterwards, and civilization could continue to spread. But in the Old Testament, of course, it's God who wants to destroy the world and save it at the same time, instead of a war between gods, between brothers.
Yeah, it's very schizophrenic. It's really no wonder it drives people so crazy.
Yeah, I think it's obviously, if you were able to understand the Greek, which I'm not, the New Testament might make a whole lot more sense. And if you're able to understand the Hebrew of the Torah, and you're able to also translate the Sumerian tablets, things would start to really become a bit clearer. But we shouldn't rely on those who are doing it for us. Obviously, the King James Bible is one poofer's mistranslation, purposeful mistranslation of mistranslations of mistranslations, and then we have Zechariah Sitchin, who was definitely onto some things, but he was also very misleading when he was doing his work about ancient Babylon, Sumeria.
Well, the ancient Aryan theory as well explains a lot of that.
Yeah, instead of it being the extraterrestrial gods, it was probably the ancient Aryans from the north.
And it says they're these gods from heaven, right? These from the north, or heaven, where it's all white.
Yes, and the shining ones. They were bright and shining. They had very white skin. They were fair. They were then also the pharaohs. From what I can tell, there were a few black pharaohs, but for the most part, they were white, and many of them were red-headed. And it could be even indicated in this story could be shown to be the case with the name of that northern region. What is that called? It's called the Arctic. A-R-C. Probably could be related to the A-R-K, the Ark. What people and animals went on in order to survive the flood and repopulate the earth. So perhaps they actually went up north, And it seems that this area, this region, perhaps it was because the poles have shifted or different weather changes have taken place, but that region probably was not covered by vast fields of ice and snow in the past, but was probably more fertile.
And the Vedic legends do talk about it still being very cold, but and if you mix it with these sort of Persian legends, it still talks about it being cold. But if you think about it, there could be other explanations for this. Like, say if they're very spiritually adept and their vibrations were higher, they could easily survive the Arctic a lot easier.
Well, one of the stories about Lugh, I think it was Lugh. It was when he would be fighting, when he'd go into battle, he would get so hot, so worked up, that afterward he would have to be dunked into, I think 3 or 5 different big vats of water so as to cool him down. One they dunk him in one, and that would all get all boiling up. Then they had to put him in another, and continue that process so as to cool him down, because that's how hot he would get. And you hear about,
and this is true. You see Falun Gong practitioners who've been. It's proven that they can generate heat and actually set stuff on fire, like Dragon Ball Z almost, right?
Yeah, raising the key.
That's tested.
Yeah, and I think you've mentioned to me in the past that one of the reasons that the likes of Anal Gore, the likes of him and his global warming crowd are so against the North Pole melting. It's obviously not because sea levels will rise. We all know that if you have ice in a glass and it's all filled up, even though the ice is sticking up over the top, once that ice melts, it's not going to overflow the glass because there is such a thing as displacement. And so for any of these icebergs, if they were to melt, it wouldn't raise sea levels whatsoever, and the ocean is huge. So that's obviously not the real reason why they're pushing it. Sure, it could be about carbon taxes, this and that. But you were suggesting that perhaps they don't want what was up there from our ancient past, which would indicate a much different story than the one we've been told, to be discovered.
Well, that's right. And they don't search the Arctic as much as they do the Antarctic either. Funny enough, and it doesn't seem to be that much on the plate. And it's not just like the Arctic; it was the sort of these ring areas around the Arctic, and we see now that there's a lot of competition going on between all these different nations, like here in Canada that's trying to claim for their own, and Russia, and
Russia,
they play to get it off the books, right?
They put that they put a tiny little flag down at the deepest part of the ocean up there in the Arctic, right? That was a couple of years back.
Yeah, and actually now they're trying to study this. They found this ancient preserved lake that's extremely old that they're trying to study now. It's pretty interesting what comes from that. I haven't heard from much about it now, but it's really hard to get to.
Do you know what's fairly idiotic, Lou, is the notion that people like you and I, our ancestors, they came out of Africa, I don't know, 30,000 years ago is what our common science says these days.
Yeah, it's just anthropological Marxism, I guess.
It's ridiculous. It's retarded. A case could actually be made for the opposite, that all humans actually started off white, and then perhaps after getting kicked out of the garden, some people had to adapt to being in such in very high sunlight environments, and that the biblical story as well is often not really understood by people. They think that Adam and Eve were the first two people on Earth, but then when Cain gets kicked out, he's marked, right? So that the other people of the earth, the nations where he goes can recognize that he should not be killed, right? So that's the mark of Cain. It was to indicate that to the other people of the earth. So Adam and Eve were not the mother and father of all people of earth, but rather of one specific bloodline.
Right.
So that's just one of those things that might indicate that we don't all have the one common ancestry, though we probably are very similarly related, just with varying degrees of genetic makeup.
Well, I think there might have been older creatures that we came from, but I think there was a lot of moving around and a lot of separate evolutions.
Yeah.
And one really, really weird sort of proposed origin story for the Jews. Did you hear about this? It's the Neanderthal theory.
Yeah, I've looked into that a bit.
And there's a lot to it. Like, it's pretty interesting because if you look at the features, they kind of match up. And there was a lot of recent research on Neanderthals, and people have this vision in their head about them, and that they're these big, hulking brutes. But that wasn't really the case. In fact, they were this more sort of domestic scavenger.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really weird. Like, they'd have like one arm that would be more bigger than the other because they did all the scraping and things like this. Sort of like this OCD. But
well, whatever the case might be, I think we've been lied to about the Neanderthals for a long, long time because it's just an incomplete story that we're given. I do think that they did interbreed with Cro-Magnon, and that they have influenced the populations of.
I don't know because
today.
that's another recent thing that came out that says that wasn't actually true. That they couldn't find the markers. It's actually a different and similar anthropoid that did interbreed.
Okay, well, there definitely were other kinds of humans, and even today, you look around the humans that are on this planet today. We're given the cultural Marxism of we're all created equal. Okay, well, why are these people 6'3" on average, and those are 5'2"?
Mm-hmm.
So we do have giants, still some remains of the giants, and some remains of the hobbits on the Earth today. And just because we all have 46 chromosomes doesn't mean that we're all equal. It doesn't mean, that I'm implying superiority just because of height or any other factor. But I think recognizing the differences between the races is very important and part of a scientific inquiry that is no longer acceptable, it seems.
Yeah, and actually, people say, it's a eugenic conspiracy. And in fact, the Jews strongly opposed Darwinism. Right from the start, right before the Nazis even came into play. I don't know if they didn't want to know these genetic origins and on all these different types of things, but they did not want that to go on. They put out the Bayesian school of genetics, which is more sort of what people look at today. Instead of it wasn't like it was less realistic and more of this we're all the same except for I don't know these types of things, right?
Well, if you think about why they would oppose Darwin, it could be because Darwin would draw into question their creation story, the creation story that they've used to also assert that they are the chosen people of God.
Right, and and what was I gonna say?
And of course, they probably didn't want something to be discovered about their own slimy origins.
Yeah, but in the Bayesian school said it was all about this culture type of thing, and this is what they're really pushing now. They said, it's all about culture, and these people just didn't have as much steel around and things like this, right? Stupid.
Yeah, hey, I'm looking at
the Greeks didn't even have that much ability to grow food. They had to import it all from the Ukrainians.
So I'm looking at the chat room here over at renegadebroadcasting.chatango.com, and of course this is something of a little aside here, but I'm getting an ad for Call of Roma. 1 click for a Roman orgy. Click now. So Lou, I'm actually going to go to a digital Roman orgy. I'll catch you later, all right?
All right, excellent. The best kind.
Yeah, you actually take Roma and reverse it as a word, you get amor. It's in love. Roma, aroma, as in the smell, the stink of what they got going on over there. Oh yeah, also you got Eros. Eros, like erotica, Eros, Cupid. Cupid would shoot arrows, right? That's what we've seen of him. He shoots arrows. He shoots love. The Celtic Rebel has brought up that those arrows going through the heart could be representative of the piercing of the butt. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, well, he was a little boy, wasn't he?
Yeah, naked little boy represents love. Good job, Romans. I mean, how are we to even know that? That was actually Greeks as well. Eros would be a Greek word, I believe, and perhaps he was Cupid and with the Romans. But how were you to even know what really was going on at those times, and if those times were even when they said they were, as Alex has questioned in the past? It could be that an extra 1,000 years were just added onto our history, and nobody would even know. They'd restructured the calendar so many different times, but I'm guessing that didn't actually happen with the Jewish calendar. They're in a completely different year than than the rest of us, and they probably tried to preserve as much of their own history as they could. But for the rest of us, hey, Gregorian, there you go. Have fun.
I don't know if it was that much, but I could see a century or something like that.
Well, yeah,
especially during the Dark Ages.
Yeah, that's what I think the idea is that the Dark Ages never happened, as we're told.
Like
but, hey, something to consider. I think it's an interesting way to look at things.
Everything would be written in, because I mean, if those Irish monks didn't preserve all these ancient writings, it'd be all over for us.
And what's interesting about that is that originally the Druids would write nothing down. It was all oral. And then when Catholicism kind of swept through Ireland, at that point they decided to put down a lot of their writings, perhaps because they saw what was coming, and they still were able to maintain a lot of their culture, a lot of their history, a lot of their legends, and incorporate it into their version of Christianity, which is what a number of different Norse cultures did as well.
I think that's sort of where some of my heritage comes from, actually, when St. Patrick kicked out the chiefs.
The snakes?
Yeah. And they all went to a lot of them went to the Highlands in Scotland. And that's where a lot of my ancestors come from, as well as like my family name actually goes back to this sort of Viking aristocracy. I think I was talking about this on your show, and they were actually, the Sweeney clan were one of the most successful military forces in Britain for the longest time, until the Vanagarian Guard, who were Kiev Rus, the old ally of the Swedes, Sweeney clan, and they were like trained by Byzantium, plus they were Kiev Rus, and so that's sort of pretty cool origin. But oh, and by the way, that's why the Jews hate the Ukrainians and the Swedes so much, because they were the ones that sacked Khazaria, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that what we're seeing playing out today is a very old vendetta. They're trying to get revenge to those who had stopped them in the past, who had conquered them, who had showed that they were by far their superiors in battle, in knowledge, in literature, in art, and in culture. And they want to now bring these people down a peg or two while trying to raise themselves up.
And that's what makes the Neanderthal theory so interesting, because there is a big war between the Cro-Magnons and the Neanderthal. And the Neanderthal was screwing around and trying to eat everybody. like really weird stuff. And I mean, could that be where this is coming from? I mean, it's hard to say.
I think I think part of it could actually go back to
Because it's illogical at the level they're at. I mean, they could
mhm.
just be insane, but there's something that happened that we don't know about.
I think a number of different things. Time and again, all the times they were kicked out of countries. I think it could actually go back to the Roman times too. I know that the story is that the Romans persecuted Jews now and again, but what we actually see happening is they had a long history of persecuting Celts and Christians. And one of the defining moments of Rome was when they were sacked by the Celts in something like 385 BC.
Yeah, the Visigoths, was it?
No, it was it? No, I think it was just forget who the leader was at that time, but they had gone into Rome, demanded a payment in gold, and their leader, wish I remembered his name right now. He was confronted for basically having faulty weights and measures, and so in order just to rub it in their faces that, listen, you have been defeated, he threw his sword on the scale and said, "Woe to the vanquished," meaning, hey, how about you pile on as much more gold as my sword weighs, because screw you guys. In any event, they left. They didn't occupy Rome.
Oh, Brennus.
Brennus, that's right.
And actually,
right.
The picture I used for our show, our first show, was of like Brennus, like, he was the redhead who's barging in the door with all the women there.
Oh yeah,
that was Brennus.
Yeah, and
Wikipedia.
Yeah, I haven't read my Celtic books in a while. Oh, those are fascinating books I had. I just picked up a few at some book sale at a library.
I just went to one of those yesterday. I got like 10 books. Pretty good.
In any event, when that happened, after that happened, the Romans adopted the attitude that we see of never again. So that it really shaped the rest of their entire history. They never ever wanted to see their capital, their shining city, invaded and sacked by a horde of barbarians ever again. And it seems to me that the Romans had a lot of Jewish traits to them. Perhaps not the early Romans, but at least the later ones. I think that they had incorporated different Jewish bloodlines. And by the time that they were up in Britain, that they really were some of the predecessors of the Brits that are up there in the lower part of England right now.
They do need to rule subversively too, because that seems the only time when it works for them. When they try to do it outright, it always fails.
And so they've had the Romans and the Jew Romans have had a long-standing hatred of the people who sacked them. And that's why they went on a kind of a genocidal campaign. Caesar definitely had one. Was it Julius Caesar? A number of them had quite a few genocidal campaigns where they just would kill a million Celts, women, children, and this really is what define the relationships in Europe to this day. And I think also the Hun had a lasting impact on their collective psyche as well when they almost sacked Rome. And that's why when the Brits were bombing the Germans in World War II, and I think in World War I they were using this kind of propaganda as well. They said they were bombing the Hun. They'd use this in their different propaganda posters. Beat back the Hun. That's what they were calling the Germans.
Yeah, that was pretty common phrase, especially in World War One. Not so much in two, but still pretty much.
Yeah, I guess in two it's those evil Nazis. I don't know. Did they actually even call them Nazis in World War II, or was that only afterward that term was applied to them?
I think it was around midway through the war, if I'm not mistaken. Something like that, but they call it Krauts mostly.
Lighting up a cigarette here, excuse me.
Yeah, but I think sort of Christianity might have been started because they were like, okay, we're both screwed if these Europeans start getting together, and we see that no matter what happens, the torch of history is going to be passed to them. So we need to subvert them. And that's what they did. They didn't send in warriors, they sent in bishops.
Yeah. That's a good point. A lot of the Celtic and Norse Christians were very much against the religious hierarchy, though. They were about people finding their own connections to the divine, kind of the mystical experience, the Gnostic methods, I would say.
Yeah, very, very much speaking with nature, the sort of visionary experience. John Lash speaks of this in depth. He actually recently put out a new series of talks. He's about halfway through, talking about the Book of Revelation, and he's telling the story that when Saint John of Patmos was having his visions, there was a Gnostic coterie from the Levant, and they went up and met him there, and they saw he was having these visions, and they were visionaries themselves. So they actually went in, and when he was giving these speeches, they sort of pulled his arm and got him to put in these things like the woman that rides the beast. Basically, I think it was like most of chapter 13, and all these animal powers, and the number of man being 666.
Right.
That's as far as he got, but it's a pretty interesting story. And they're on their way to set up an outpost in Wales. But
does John Lash ever talk about the Jews?
All the time. Yeah.
Really? He didn't used to so much.
No, he does. He said the other day that the biggest problem is humanity. He grew up in the '60s. Like, he's kind of connected with that. Like, he hooked up with like Kropotkin's daughter for a while, and you kind of see how he was kind of connected with these kind of stupid leftist things. Kind of.
Well, no, he's talking about the myth of Sophia and the archons and everything, and that was pretty much his Red Ice Radio type of
well, that's only
story.
Red Ice too, right? But I've actually read his book, and it just goes into detail about the history of the Jews and how it's all them. And basically, if you look at his other work, other than just like random interviews, he really goes into it in depth.
I think it's funny that the promo.
I have to give a look at his book again. Maybe I can throw you out a couple good things from it another shot.
Nice. I like his promo photos where it's like he's wearing some kind of robe that is exposing his chest, a huge swath of his chest. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of new age girls that swarm to him for some reason, but maybe that's part of that.
Hey, maybe if I make it to be that old, I'll do the same thing. But right now, I'm gonna keep my chest in my shirt.
He's an odd cat, but he put out some good stuff there.
All right, coming up soon, the Renegade Broadcasting calendar. Lou, what month are you gonna claim?
A month? What do you mean?
Oh, yeah, the Men of Renegade Broadcasting.
I did November.
All right, you get November. Oh man, I think that would sell though.
It would sell, but it would be the wrong market. I don't think we'd want to do that.
You'd probably get a lot of.
We'd probably get a lot of orders from Austin, Texas.
Oh, I'm just kidding. No calendar yet. The men of alternative media.
You have to show us an ID that proves you're a woman, and we might send one out to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna send one complimentary to over to Orion and also the Intel Hub. Dear Shepard, I think you'll enjoy this.
That's scary stuff, man.
You know, it is scary. It's scary stuff, though. Those guys are putting out such crap, such deliberate disinformation. They are such little bitches. Those guys make me sick.
It's so bad. I mean,
I'm organizing a Rumble. We're going to get it going. You ever see The Outsiders read the book? We're getting a Rumble like at the end of that book.
Yeah, like back in the day, and the National Socialists, they used to like fight the Marxists 10-1 in Barbaros. I mean, these anti-fa guys can't fight their way to a white paper bag anyway. Hey, do you want to take a quick break?
Yeah, sure, but I'd give us 1 to 5 odds if we were facing off against Orion and the Intel Hub boys. I'd take 1 to 5.
I'm pretty sure I could easily take any one of us could take Shepard, Tuscan, Thomas, well, Popeye, all these idiots.
Oh, Popeye's tough though, man.
Yeah, it's probably not. Pop him in the nose.
Yeah, Lou. Let's take a little break here.
I gotta take care of something really quick. I'll be right back.
No, all right.
All right, and that was Connor Oberst covering Kodachrome. Good tune. And by the way, our opening music was Invisible Hand by the Stanfields. Pretty good band. Here from Nova Scotia. I'm actually going to see those guys tomorrow, so that might be pretty cool. Kyle, are you with us?
I am. I was muting myself so I didn't get in the way of the music.
All right, cool. So where were we? The Truth Movement.
Yeah, we were discussing the Truth Movement.
And you see, look at how complicated this rhetoric is. This convinces these people of this bullshit. And it all plays on stuff from high school and college and the media. It's like, as brainwashed as these people are, it took God knows how many hours, thousands of hours of indoctrination to get them to this level. It's ridiculous. As bad as they are, I mean, we have to understand the work that went into putting them this way.
Well, what's really kind of funny to me is that we go through our life, in church and in school, we learn that Satan is the greatest evil on the planet. He's behind all the bad stuff, and we learn that Hitler and the fascist and those guys, the white supremacists, are the most evil people on the planet. And then we think, oh wow, I just woke up. I'm into this conspiracy information, and what are you confronted with? It's Satan. Satan is in charge of everything, and it's a bunch of Nazis who are running the show. So, really, how far have you really gotten when you're accepting all of the same old lies that were given to you from birth about the same villains? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
And I mean, religion is ultimately the problem, I think. This ideology, because the communism. Moses Hess is the father of both communism and Zionism. Type in to Google Moses Hess, father of communism and Zionism. I'll drop a link in the show notes if you listen in the archive. But yeah, it's pretty sick, man.
Yeah, well, I think that we've had this discussion before. Well, whether or not trying to rip Christianity away from these people who have been so tied to it, and instead of trying to reform it a bit, is the best move. I think that perhaps what could be done is to show people the truth about their religion and how it actually has its roots in spiritual Satanism. For example, there's that documentary I posted over at Alternative Social about the serpent worshippers, and how Christ, in the documentary, it talks about how Christ, or Jesus on the cross, was very much representative of the serpent, basically shedding his old skin to become a new.
Yeah, and they needed to put that in there to get them on board. And people talk about Christian values. Well, these were values that the people they imposed this on already represented. So, as well as it was a big. I think it was a big move against the Greeks as well, and there might have been something that happened there, because we see these people work on inversion. Okay, so something might have happened there that they needed to invert. That could be an issue, but we just don't know. Ultimately, I do think it was this sort of a ploy to this mutual ploy with the Romans to have their rule continue, because we even see this with this sort of proposed Antichrist idea. It's like it's the battle at the end of the age, and it's saying the old age wins, but that never happens. But that's what they're trying to purport.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that the United States was founded on satanic serpent worshipping principles, but my contention is that that's not necessarily a bad thing. You look at the early flags of the founding fathers, the rebels there. What'd they have? They had the Gadsden, right? Don't tread on me, rattlesnake. I'm not saying I'm gonna come out and kill you, but if you step over here, I am going to poison the frig out of you. You will not like it, so don't tread on me. Don't do it. I'm rattling. I'm letting you know this is a gesture of kindness. Just don't come over here and try to run game. All right. And then you had the join or die, right, with the different segments of the snake all chopped up, and the message was, you got to be, come together as one powerful snake.
And this could tie into Gnosticism as well, because the aeons are said to be these plasmic serpents.
Right. And then Ophiuchus, right, the serpent bearer as well, the 13th sign up there in the zodiac, right? And how many colonies did the original United States have?
13.
13, right? 13 states, 13 stars on that flag. And now we have 50 stars on the United States flag because there are 50 states. And why did they stop at 50? Why not add Puerto Rico or a number of these other territories? Well, because I think that 50 is a very esoterically important number, and the reason for that is that snake equals 50, and apple equals 50. And, of course, a snake gave an apple. And America equals 50. And I'm talking about simple English gematria, ABC 1, 2, 3, add it all up.
Isn't there more? Like, I think Bizarian talked about something about Amaraka.
I'm sure there's more.
It's
but
like another word for a snake in some culture or something.
And I mean, there's a lot to the breakdown I was just giving there, and I might get into it more on occult domination, which is what I'm tentatively titling my show on Renegade. But you've got the 50th element on the periodic table is tin, which is SN. That's the two-letter abbreviation for it. SN, like snake, like sin. And then you've got Medusa, MEDUSA, right? And she had a head full of snakes.
Interestingly, Kalki is interpreted as Perseus in a lot of legends.
Oh, that's kind of interesting.
Perseus was the one who always Medusa, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but this is like sort of the Dark Age, if we can equate Perseus with Kalki, um, and then therefore Kali could be Medusa. So we do see this proper representation of the Kali Age, and there are beneficial aspects of this as well. But it's all these inversions, and like it's like they were the snake as opposed to being the victim of the snake. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's the term snake oil salesman, which originates from people who were putting out products that weren't actually snake oil themselves, but were purporting to be such and purporting to have the same healing properties that the various snake oils did, because the snake actually had many very incredible healing properties.
Yeah, poison on one end, is restorative because it can renew as well. That's one property of that,
and that's why you see the
like
caduceus.
Antibiotics, this sort of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, that's why you see the caduceus with the two snakes coiled around the staff, and then the wings on there too, like the winged serpent. I mean, it has to do with DNA as well, long before DNA was, of course, discovered. But the healing property of the snake, again, is represented right there. And people will say, oh, it's just the satanic conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. But it has more pure origins to it, and then it was just perverted and taken over and inverted.
And if you look at people, like, it could be more further esoteric meaning to that, because, like, we look at our blood, it's sort of this snaky thing, right? And we're electric beings, so we have snake-like electrical currents flowing through our body nonstop. So, I mean, that could be part of it as well.
Yeah. And I like to get naked sometimes. I like to get naked with an Eve like...
I need to integrate that into a pickup line somehow. But
hey, baby, you want to eat this apple? And no, actually, yeah. After they ate the apple, then they were no longer willing to be naked, I guess. But it wasn't even a damn apple. That's another one of those lies about what happened in that story. It just got turned into a red apple, like Snow White or something.
Yeah, it sort of represents like Prometheus in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, and
I think from a storyline perspective, it's Prometheus, but from a spiritual perspective, it's feminine.
Well, some of the occult thoughts about the Adam and Eve story is that the serpent giving the apple to Eve was actually teaching about procreation, and so Cain is actually the son of Satan. Eve had Satan's son, which was Cain, and then Abel was the son of Adam, because then she taught Adam what she had learned. Just putting it out there. So I do think that it doesn't mean that these are reptilian bloodlines, but I do think that there is the serpent seed on this planet. There is the powerful genetics of a certain line of people who have been considered dragons for a long time, and you can even see this in the. If you look at the symbol for the tribe of Dan, it says Da, and it has the six-pointed star, and within it it's a serpent winding its way down the path. And what they say of the tribe of Dan is that he is like a serpent that biteth the horse's heels to make him fall backwards. He's like an adder in the path, A-D-D-E-R, which is a kind of snake, or one who adds things up.
They could addle things like the ADL.
Right. And the tribe of Dan, of course, Dan is an anagram for DNA or NAD, like your gonads, which are able to produce that DNA for procreation. You turn the serpent into a staff, and magic happens. I'm obviously talking about a phallic symbol there. Spitting venom. There's a lot to it. a lot to it. But we're obviously not meant to actually consider it with any kind of reason or logic or anything like that. We're supposed to think, oh my God, evil satanic serpents, be scared.
Well, we know none of these stories are actually true. Like, in reality, uh, the Hyksos, came in Egypt and screwed everything up. He tried to take over part of the kingdom, and they split the kingdom, and things like this. And the home city of the Hyksos is spelled Avaris.
Avarice. Yeah.
But I mean, these stories are all different. I mean,
Well,
I don't even know if the tribe of Dan would even necessarily be
for
Jewish.
any,
I mean, the
oh yeah, I agree with that. I think that perhaps the Jews were related to them in some ways.
or they might have even just coupled this with this logic, because I think one thing they do is the so-called Merovingian story. Right? They said it's the bloodline of Christ and the bloodline of Dan and all these different things, but I think they're just trying to. And these were the kings of Middle Europe, and they're trying to overtake that now. These guys weren't great; they were just Jewish or something like that, right? And if you look at the what's it called, the Lorraine Church, Saint Lorraine Church in Scotland, that actually used to be the site of the greatest Druidic university. And in ancient times, the Druidic universities were some of the best in the world. They held up the high regard, astrology and magic, you call it, and all these spiritual powers.
For anybody that didn't catch it before, avarice, another word for greed, pretty much. Also, Adler. In German, Adler means eagle, which is kind of interesting. Which is, of course, perched atop the flag of the National Socialists. It was perched atop the totem pole of the Native Americans. It's perched atop the flagpole of the United States as well.
The old sign of Scorpio used to be an eagle, and that's like the one right next to.
Well, it's a transformative sign. It turns from, I guess, the scorpion to an eagle to a dove, and also, of course, it's at the top of the Norse Tree of Life up there in Asgard. Let's see, a couple other points I want to bring up. The tribe of Dan connecting to the Irish people. Of course, there was the Tuatha De Danann, the magical people, the shining ones, who basically civilized, populated ancient Ireland, and they had they had some rivals that they had to actually beat. They were said to be related to them from long ago, but who had basically split off. They were ugly and greedy and just not honorable like the Tuatha De Danann.
And they were like taxmen and things like that.
I forgot what they were called. What were they called?
The Formians.
Okay, but they were related, right? And when I heard of this story, it made me think immediately, oh, it's the Jews. And that would describe why a lot of the Jewish mythical tradition is actually based on Celtic tradition at its very roots, it seems. But as you've mentioned, a lot of it has been inverted.
It's hard to get to the bottom of, for sure. I mean, they could just very well stole it. But I mean, even if you look at Lord of the Rings, the story with it could very well be telling this story of the war between the Neanderthal and the Cro-Magnons. Because if you look at the shape of Middle Earth, it looks exactly like Doggerland, which is a name for ancient Europe, which would have existed around that time. And this is before different waters moved in and things. But, I mean, they do look very similar to old Doggerland and Middle Earth. If you look at a map of the two, it's astounding.
There are a lot of other kinds of interesting connections to the present day, though, with it was the Uruk-hai, which were those great warriors that they had to go fight against, right? The Uruk-hai,
Right.
Uruk, and would be the another name for the original city of Earth, but also what was called is a reference to Iraq, Uruk. In Iraq, one of the kind of opposition or Iraqi news sites that they have is UrukNet, URUK.net. And right after that film was released, when was that released? 2001 or I forget. But
the book's pretty old though.
Right, but right after they go and invade Iraq, right?
Yeah.
Go fight the Uruks. And also, of course, then you have the Twin Towers, right after the two towers come down. So there's a lot to that for sure.
Yeah, and he was around. He wrote around the time of the Second World War.
So apparently he was writing the story as an allegory for the war, and he was sending it to entertain, I think, his son, who was fighting on the front. But no, who's to say he was actually even trying to get some of these esoteric codes in there? Perhaps people took his work afterward and then started weaving that into the mind programming, or he was just tapping into something, timeless or
right. There's much to be said with. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying it might have been some kind of prophetic story as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said about genetic memory and things like that. Especially if you're already sort of artist, happens a lot. But I mean, even like with World War II, we had a lot of esoterists and things like this working with it. I mean, I think that the original plan for World War II was to have Stalin invade Europe and turn them red, and have those guys go after the Middle East and have this big Gog-Magog war. And it's what it took them a while to do. That's what we're doing now. But I mean, and these are archetypes too. I mean,
wasn't Bush's name Magog in Skull and Bones or something?
It was, yeah.
Oh.
Or it might have been his dad.
Okay. Either way, they both waged wars in Iraq.
And I think it might have not as gotten as far as it wanted to, as they expected it to. I think they underplayed their hand somewhat. I mean, because look now, you get like a Palestinian state, but then again, who knows what they're going to do? Maybe they're going to. It's hard to predict these guys, but they might have something planned that won't matter. Who knows? Or they foresaw it and they just want to get a couple of digs in gas before it's too late. It's hard to say, especially nowadays, because they know we're trying to figure them out on the internet, and they're. I do think they put as much work into fleecing the goyim as they do screwing with us. Like I think there's say there's a council of council of 5 rabbis, and Rabbi 1 will get his team to be okay. You're gonna figure out money. Team 2 is okay. You're gonna do media. Okay, and the other guy, okay, you're gonna do truth movement, and so on, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna handle government, and the other guy is religion stuff, right? Or the kitty diddling, whatever they do.
I think they all want to get involved with that one. Hey, you wanna give out the call-in number? See if anybody wants to chime in this Friday evening here.
All right, I almost forgot. Yeah, I guess we'll take calls from this point onward. 347-633-9657. That's 347-633-9657. And by the way, if you're just tuning in, we're chatting at renegadebroadcasting.com.
All right.
Good. So, we got on a bit of a tangent there. Well, it's been one long tangent throughout the evening.
You put us on mute. Were you that? Sorry, I have control. I'm back in the studio there. I was just playing with Lou.
You weasel. Hopefully that will die off soon, but I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know. People love that though. They thought that was hysterical. I guess I was reading some of the comments on that show over at grism.blogspot.com, plugging them because they put out my shows on their site, and I really like being able to listen to shows with all the damn annoying commercials. So great job, guys.
Yeah, they put out a lot of content. I frequent that show a bit. Show site.
Yep. I don't always love every single program that's put out there, but it's a good assortment.
And most of them are pretty good. Keeps me occupied and always having something to listen to in the background while I'm doing.
Hashtag Occupy Lou.
Oh, man.
Hashtag Occupy Other People's Homes. Hashtag Occupy Palestine.
Yeah. And, like, they say, oh, they're kicking Palestinians out of their homes, but how many Americans did they kick out of their homes in the last 4 years?
Yeah, every time a bank possesses a home, some Jews are just letting a home sit unoccupied while the former owners are just out there on the street. Yep.
Pretty sad.
Now, that's why you need a nationalist takeover, and then you can reallocate the resources. I'm not talking about redistribution of wealth, except for a few corrupt criminal people, many of them who are part of the tribe. Yes, I think that those resources should be reallocated, and there's no reason to have a lot of homelessness when there are a lot of empty homes. Makes no damn sense to me. And I think that there are plenty of resources in the United States, plenty of wealth, and it has even with the amount that has been siphoned off. If you're able just to unchain yourself from the economic system that is run by the Jews, that is debt-based, that is based on usury, which is a fiat currency, then well, we could start from scratch, make a lot of their current holdings of wealth completely useless. And this does not involve going to a gold standard because they've had the kind of money to be able to buy up hoards of gold, and that would actually benefit them to a certain degree. But, we could possibly follow the track that was laid by the NSDAP, which led to a great deal of employment in their country, which would be a currency based upon the productivity of their country. And even though the Americans out there today are fairly obese, fairly lazy, I still do think that there's enough people who want to be productive, who want to work hard, who want to see good things for themselves and their families and their communities and their nation as a whole, that we really could turn things around in a short period of time. And that is what the ruling power structure is really scared of. They are not scared of hippies smoking pot on their buses, talking about mind-controlled celebrities. They are not scared of little intel soldiers railing against the Federal Reserve and the globalists and supporting Alex Jones. That is not what they are scared of.
Yeah, and definitely, like we've talked about before, with the entirety of the Frankfurt School was based on inverting the psychology and everything about the National Socialist movement, and it was really based on this, in a lot of ways, this concept of autarky, which is self-sufficiency, and this is largely what a lot of these so-called Paulbergs are proclaiming to be so great, and you can really see the inversion there with that, and it's what old America was all about. And what about these banks? Well, predator drone, okay, big deal, and it's ridiculous. Like people really say how great Andrew Jackson is. Well, what Andrew Jackson did, he slaughtered uh, thousands of not, if not more, of Indians, took their land and used the profits from that to pay off the Rothschild debt. So I mean, we don't got to pay this debt. They got a problem. They can tell us the predator drone, okay? But I mean, we shouldn't have to deal with this nonsense. And even still, with what little Germany used, with what they did so much with so little, I mean, America has all the resources in the world. Like we have more than we'll ever need. And look what they did, and it's nothing compared to what we could do if we were able to get out of this.
You know what's funny? Andrew Jackson is one of the people who's promoted over in one of this section over at Orion Broadcasting. He's one of their heroes over there. Like, look at what one man can do. And he did slaughter a number of natives, sent them on the Trail of Tears. And he had made agreements, treaties, contracts with these different tribes of Indians, and completely went back on them. Did not hold up his end of the bargain. So he's not an honorable man.
Yeah, and he ripped off a lot of Americans too. Basically, I mean, there's accountability with the Bank of the United States, the Second Bank of the United States. But what he did was he set that off, and it was like, okay, just use smaller banks, which have no accountability. And Andrew Jackson, growing up, he was basically a glorified vigilante. I mean, he was this like sort of gunslinger type of guy, right? He was an honorable man, and this is like he's just basically a criminal. That's probably why he hated the bank, because he wanted to rampant criminality or something like that. Man, he's just a character of ill repute. That's sort of what they want. I mean, this is why they're sort of bringing all these this truth movement that's all homosexuals and drug addicts. I mean, that's what they're trying to create. I remember hearing a story. I was listening to an interview with a Minuteman, and he said they used to infiltrate old leftist meetings, and they would dress up like smelly, effeminate hippies and go act like idiots to make them look bad. And look what they're doing now. It's kind of like the same thing. It's kind of funny. But, I mean, and you got all these people running around like, no, all government is wrong, man. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, that one is actually, it's harder to break in the minds of these people than other ones. They've been thoroughly convinced that the only good government is no government. And I was kind of there with them for a while, but
I was too.
It doesn't make any damn sense in terms of being practical, in terms of really any kind of political theory. You'd be setting yourself up as a sitting duck if that's really your approach.
Yeah, well, I don't like capitalism. I don't like communism. I used to be an anarchist, and then I read a bit, and now I'm a national socialist. What can I say?
Greg is saying, hope we give credit to Charles for bringing up some important info about Andrew Jackson. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to listen to Charles for a long time, so I haven't heard his ranting about...
that show's worth a listen.
Is it good? Yeah,
Sid Gala did a good show on him, too. Sun Grism.
There's a lot of good material out there that people should check out. But when I have to do my own shows too, I just don't have the time to really check out what everybody else is putting out. But I know that they're putting out thoroughly researched, in-depth shows about these different particular topics, and I think that's great. It really adds to our total knowledge base.
Yeah, we really got quite the system going now. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's definitely gaining a good deal of traction. And I don't know if you caught this. What's that woman's name over there on RT? She was responding to the RT media offices in Gaza being bombed, and she she has a ridiculous haircut, by the way. It's completely lopsided. One side of her hair is a lot longer than the other. It's absurd. But in any event, she ends her little spiel by saying, "And sometimes the truth hurts." I was wondering. When I heard
know
that,
you did.
I was like, is she subtly referencing Mr. Charles Giuliani?
I wonder.
That would be funny if that's what she was kind of putting out there. Now, I think Russia Today, maybe she or some of the people there are legitimately pissed that their offices would be bombed by these Israelis. But that being said, what is it that their former KGB, right? Like there's such a thing. President Putin is over there wearing a yarmulke, bowing down to them. Why is it that they have a new big old Holocaust or Jewish history museum there in Moscow? Talking about all of these lies and nonsense, trying to gain sympathy for them.
The way I see it, go ahead.
I'm just saying, I think that RT is trying to, in many ways, control the opposition by making themselves a part of it. To say, oh, we're against the barbaric Israelis as well, when in fact, it doesn't seem like they're really opposing the Jewish power structure, especially when I think their director, as Alex has brought up, is a Russian Jewess herself.
Yeah, the way I see it, it's basically the Cold War flipped. Instead of having a directly Jewish-run Soviet Union and a sort of shadow attempting to control force in America, it's the other way around. And it's weird how that plays off each other, but I think that's basically how it is at this point. And they need to make concessions. They have a lot of gangsters over there and things like that, right? But well, that's sort of how I see it.
There was an old propaganda magazine from the Soviet Union and the cover of it was titled "Russia Today." That was the cover of one of their propaganda pieces to try to have an outreach to the Western world to say, look how great the Soviet Union is.
Yeah, and Max Kaiser, actually, they just pulled an operation with him recently. Basically, they quote-unquote banned him from Facebook, so he's acting like he's this big, rebel now who's coming up with all this secret information. He's like, this big page, it'll be a whole list of things like Israel did 9/11, all these Gaza pictures and things like that. And then it'll be like, oh, Hitler was a Rothschild. And the next one will be, oh, Hitler was funded by Wall Street and all this stuff, right? It's a big joke. Maybe they're getting desperate. Maybe Kaiser's hurt for ratings.
All I know is that Max Kaiser would put out video after video with all of these penis, semen, anus jokes, time and time again. He's just a clown.
Yeah, he's a weird guy. Anyway, we have some callers. Take a caller too?
We should.
All right. First we have 920. Caller, you're on the air. 920.
Hey, Lou.
Hey, Steve-O from Wisco. How you doing, man? What are you saying?
Pretty good. You guys were talking about Andrew Jackson and Charlie. That's a good point. He did you guys might want to re-listen to his last couple shows about Andrew. He's apparently a Rothschild agent, so Charlie says. You guys can form your own opinion. I had a question for you guys.
Shoot.
Did you hear John Friend's show on Truth Militia with Thomas Goodrich?
Yeah, I heard that. Actually, I just listened to it today.
What did you guys think?
I didn't hear it.
Yeah, basically it was a show about all the atrocities that happened on Germany, like all of the stories about all the rapes, and that was actually communist policy to rape all the German women, and they did.
Actually, I think I did hear this one. It was very good.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I
this
thought so.
firebombing is terrible stuff.
Yeah, guys, as soon as I got home, I ordered the book. So I hope I didn't make a mistake. I got so many books in my library, like the Celtic always talks about, what's that guy's name? Fritz Springmeyer, whatever. I got that book. That's going to go in my wood pile someday in my fire ring. We're going to burn that fire. Anyways, I wanted to... Pardon?
I said, you book-burning Nazi.
Well, NSDAP, pal. Anyway, I wanted to tell you, that book brought out a lot of old feelings. I actually called in the Dougie show and promoted it in a kind of sly way. Hope he does an interview with the guy. I just wanted to have the guy on because I thought he was pretty credible, pretty down-to-earth man. He was talking about one of the things I said on Dougie's show is about how they torpedoed those ships. He said, I don't know about these numbers, but he said one of these two ships in the North Sea had 8,000 people on them. Well, my dad was supposed to get on that ship. By then, my grandfather was already dead. My grandmother, my paternal grandmother, had waited way too long. All the relatives kept saying, "Get the hell out of there." And so there they are, 4 boys. My dad was the oldest. He was 12 at the time. And 3 little stair steps. Get on this ship. She's begging the German soldiers, please let my boys get on the ship. That was one of those 2 that got torpedoed. I even got that from another friend of mine that's got no involvement in the truther media. His name's Dan. He's a bit of a history buff. He remembered that ship. So that happened, and that really intrigued me. He talked about Dresden, got into some detail about the firebomb vortex, how they splintered it, then they put white phosphorus on it and burned it. He talked about Hamburg and the way they just completely devastated that city to just ashes. The rapes, absolutely, that was disgusting. He's a nice man. He didn't go too far in the interview, but I bet you the book's going to be amazing. Mm-hmm. Man, I could tell you guys stories about my dad when he was little in East Prussia. Growing up, he used to talk about how cold it was there when he was a little kid before any of this war came. He talked about they lived in this little farm, him and his brothers and my grandma. They had this little lake down there, and they used to fish, and they were just like little Indians down in there. But when it was so cold, you'd run across that floor, and all they had was a wood stove in there, just a cook stove. But there was another time, he told me he could hear the Russian guns going off. He said this one time, and this is not a lie, this is what my dad told me. He said a German soldier came in with basically rags wrapped around his feet because he had no goddamn boots left, just exhausted, just beating on the door in the middle of winter with the Russian guns going off. I could tell you stories like that, guys. That's my heritage. That's all I pretty much wanted to say. But if you ever want to hear some more stories, maybe we'll do them another time on Unleashed or something.
I think that'd be pretty cool to do with, or maybe even what I'm doing now, since we own this sort of platform, we can just do random interviews and things like that at any day that's free. So even something like that, or if we do it on Unleashed tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. People need to talk about these types of things because no one else does. And it's always these one-sided stories that aren't even true.
Lou, Kyle, I'm going to let you go. You got any other callers? Otherwise, I can let you go.
Yeah, we do have another caller.
Okay.
Anything else you wanted to add really quick?
Lou, yes. You guys, this is one of those shows where I've been chatting, half listening, half chatting. I can't wait to hear it again. You guys are jumping all over the place, but this is going to be a great show for when I go back to work next week. I'm going to definitely check it out again on download. So, thanks, guys.
Hey,
great job.
Thank you, Steve-O. Always appreciate you listening, calling in.
All right, man. We talk to you.
Good night, guys.
Night. And donating. Steve-O has supported us all, a lot of us, quite well, and he's a great guy.
Yeah, and like I was talking about, it's Old Testament warfare. That's what it is. And even some of these things these communists did, they fed people to each other. And it's all this stuff that's taken right out of the Old Testament. So, and like I was talking before about Heth, that's basically what it is.
There's some lines in the Old Testament about basically making bread with feces and baking it and people.
Yeah, pretty screwed up.
Yep.
So do you want to take Yeehaw?
Nah, screw yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's take yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on the air.
What's up, folks?
Hey, man, what are you saying?
I'm just here, man, listening, burning some sage. Because I kind of want to reveal or share one of my personal stories. And
right.
you know how that goes.
All right, man, we're listening.
Okay, so for, my old youth, I've always wondered in the fringes of whatever is strange for people, And at some point I tried to get some LSD. And I couldn't for about 2 years. And the time that it came to me, it came for free. And it came out the blue without me even wanting it. When I did the thing, there was nothing going on. Like, seriously, there was nothing going on. Except at some point, some heads of a demon bloom in my carpet. They were just blooming like flowers coming out the floor. They kept on spinning. And then, I started panicking, so I smoked some weed. I stood on top of my bed, I looked down, and the whole heads that were spinning, they were nothing but scales on a huge snake just slithering around my room. And so till this day, I kind of had I had good experiences that night, some that I can even share, but what I was wondering about the experience is if that snake actually came from within me. You know how they say there's an imprint on the blood? I really don't know what I experienced, but ever since, I don't think I need to take the thing anymore.
I've had similar experiences, not even with LSD, wherein, I was having communication with the serpent, and it was not scary per se, but it was awesome. It didn't get to the point of being awful, but it was awesome, and it was a little bit humbling, a little bit. It's not. I don't even know how to describe it. It wasn't even a verbal communication, but it's enlightening, and I do agree with you. It's quite possible that the serpentine energy is coming from within, whether it's the Kundalini energy, whether it's the double helix of the serpentine DNA manifesting itself externally for us in a visual hallucination. It's hard to say, but I think that this force has been with humans for quite some time, accessible to them, until somewhat recently when we've been shut off from it, scared of it. And maybe it's only certain kinds of people who have this kind of experience. But I think that this was part of the goals of the spiritual quest for many people for quite some time.
Because even if you look at a vibration, it's sort of this slither.
The wavelength, the sine wave.
Right.
Well, that night, I felt...
The SN wave.
True. In my head, I felt the ripples on my brain kind of shifted, and there was this warm sensation going on. And then a year after, in the same type of light, which is a sort of a light that's everywhere in the air, but it's mostly shapeless, I saw a lion at some other point of my life, with the same type of body, but it was a lion. And that made me think about how the Chinese have this, all of their tattoos, there's a lion fighting with a snake, which is just balance.
Well, isn't the Mexican flag, doesn't have an eagle with a snake in its claws?
Yeah.
Talons?
That's offensive for the natives, actually.
I can imagine, yeah. Well, isn't that, what's the pyramid down there in Mexico that I guess at one certain point of the year, it illuminates the snake basically crawling down its side?
It's the pyramid of the sun in Tula, Mexico.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
And
man.
of course, the sun is represented oftentimes as a serpent. You can think of the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail, as kind of the movement, perhaps that the Earth does around the sun, but also what we from Earth see the sun doing every day as it traces its footsteps over and over again.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the, I don't know, out of the ordinary experiences I would like to share with all of the people that kind of don't have the, I don't know what it is, if it is a benefit or a curse, to have this type of experiences. They do. Yeah.
Well, definitely. And also, as I mentioned about SN before, relating to the snake, you just put the U in the middle of SN and you get sun, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. A lot to it. Anything else, Ia?
I don't know, man. I just want people to know that anything they desire is within reach, but they just have to be honest about it, What is it that you want? What is it that you're looking for? Do it, and it'll come.
Yeah, it's sort of this, you don't find what you want, but you get what you need. A lot of what people want is not what they truly want, and they don't get it, and they're like, oh, why don't I get a Gucci bag? And it's like, you don't really want a Gucci bag or something like this, right? You don't really want that. You just think you do, and it's this sort of dream invasion that I talk about. But you get what you need. If you know what you need, you'll get it.
It's such a happy life once you realize what you need. So what you need becomes what you want, and there's no separation.
Right, and that's sort of with this consumer culture. It's false need, right? And it's so pervasive.
All right, you guys. I'll let you continue with the show.
All right, thanks for chiming in, man. Call back anytime.
No problem. I was actually listening through Skype, so I don't know if you guys mind if I stay alone. I just mute myself.
Yeah, I'll just throw you on mute.
Thank you.
Good talking to you.
All right, thanks.
Always. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, good to have Ia on there. That's Boyce.
Yeah, I guess he's one of those red beards. He said he didn't really realize it until he started growing out his beard, and it had a lot of the red in it as well.
Yeah, I get that too. I normally have dark hair, but when I have a big beard, I have a lot of red hairs.
I'm a red-bearded supremacist, everyone.
Ginger supremacist.
Yeah. Oh, okay. We got just a little bit of time left here in the live broadcast, huh?
Yep. So far, anything else you want to get into? Any news or?
There's so much crap out there in the news. It's the news of the Jews. Who really even freaking cares about most of it?
Yeah, the evening Jews.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking over here at Drudge right now, and it's all just a bunch of nonsense. The lead story is about how some NFL star is in some hot water because of his the tattoos he has. That's the lead image there. Who gives a fuck? Yeah, it's all ridiculous stories that really don't mean anything. Here's an interesting headline. NASA warns Mayan apocalypse stories pose threat to frightened children, suicidal teens. Those aren't actually Mayan apocalypse stories. It's the Jewish media that picked up little tidbits about the Mayan calendar and the Bactunes and totally blew it out of proportion and misrepresented what was being said there.
Yeah, if you look at a picture of the Mayan calendar, it's a circle. I mean, it doesn't end.
Well, it's circles within circles.
Right. And they're like, oh, at the end, they're thinking of like the square calendar. Oh, it's over. But no, it's a damn circle. And they put all these books out, and Truth Frequency pushes it and stuff.
Well, I guess we are coming to the end of the 13th Bactune in 3 weeks here, Lou.
Yeah, it's good riddance to this crummy age anyway. I don't like it that much anyway.
Yeah, you know what? I do think that fairly soon we will be seeing the end of the Kali Yuga. And there's an interesting video you had posted before called "The Kings of the Kali Yuga," and it was about the Jews.
Yeah, I rather enjoyed that one. It sort of lays things out pretty well. I'll throw it in the show notes.
Yeah, people could just search for that one too, "Kings of the Kali Yuga," and pull that up there.
We have another caller.
Alrighty.
859, you're on the air.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, man?
Can you hear me? Hey Lou, man, I like your show. I like your take on things. It's a good thing. Kyle, I like your show.
Thank you.
It kind of gets annoying when I'm in your chat room and I have some guy who calls himself the Celtic Rebel, who's neither Celtic nor a rebel, banning me every time I make a post. But anyway, I just want to call in and say you guys are doing a great job and keep up the good work. And for the most part, I really can't. I guess I can't refute anything you're saying. For the most part, you're actually right on point. I get tired of the esoteric bullshit, but other than that, you guys are doing a great job, and I just wanted to call in and say that.
Well, the esoteric stuff's not really for everybody, but it is an important part, like that some people like to get into. But there's so much bullshit out there about it too. I mean, people like us sort of talk about the more we try to find, like it's hard to find like the real truth about it, and that's sort of why it's good to discuss it. But 90% of things that would call itself out there esoteric is bull, and it's hard to look into and figure out, right?
Exactly. I mean, you have to actually look into actual historical events. And you can't. I don't like the hearsay. The hearsay, it drives me nuts. And I guess basically the only reason I called was because some fucking fag in the goddamn fucking chat room keeps fucking banning me every time I say something. And I know who it is. He's a goddamn sissy, fucking fag, and I'm getting tired of his bullshit. So that's all I want to say. Y'all take it easy.
All right, have a good one, man.
All right, bye.
And that was the Gov Hater.
Is that Gov Hater?
Yeah.
All right, well, if you go and, talk like that, wonder why you're banned. No offense. But,
I need people to moderate the chat room because I can't do it while I'm broadcasting. And for the most part, the Rebel or Metro Bob, which would be who he's referencing, I believe, he does a pretty good job. Not everybody likes him, but we all have our disagreements, I guess.
I suppose. Anything else you want to get into?
No. I think I've covered a lot of different topics here. Now, what do you think? Any final thoughts here? We could do a little bit overtime if you want, but
we'll wait and see if Lee does the show. I don't really want to cut into him if he does.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you have your outro music lined up for the night too? It looks like you uploaded some.
Yeah, I uploaded a couple. I should have made some more longer tunes. I don't really have much breaking.
I've got the Dubliners, the Dublin Ramblers doing Foggy Dew. If you like that one.
Yeah, I saw that there.
Yeah, we should. We'll wrap this up in the next few minutes, and you could play us out with some tunage.
I got some songs I got off the some kind of anti-communist CD I found there. It's kind of like angry white people music. It's kind of funny. I'll play one of those. I'll be short. But anyway, do you know what you're doing this week on your show or anything like that?
I have no idea if I'm doing a show. And if I'm doing a show, I'm not sure who I'll be having on or if it'll just be me. But people should tune in regardless. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. That'd be Saturday for anybody listening in the archives, 7 p.m. Eastern on oraclebroadcasting.com. And then, even if I'm not part of it, there should be a broadcast at 11 p.m. Eastern on Saturday evening, right here at renegadebroadcasting.com.
Yeah, I might be gone out, but if you do overdrive, I should be home by then.
All right, well, hey, if anybody's around, they can do it. And if you want to schedule one for 1 a.m., who cares? Just, obviously after you've had a lot of water in your system, if you don't want to be doing a broadcast, you don't need to. But
no, I'll be out and about, so I probably won't be too bad.
Drinking that water, huh?
It's refreshing. It is. I'm just so refreshed. I can't.
I'm so saturated.
Yeah.
All right, you said you're gonna play a clip.
All right. Yeah. I guess we'll just play this out and check out.
I thought you said you had some rantings from some communist or something.
No. It's just like anti-communist rock and stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, let's wrap it up. Let's give it like a Jerry Springer, a Jewy Springer final thoughts section here. Do you have any final thoughts, Lou? Is there a moral to this story?
Moral of the story: what's the deal with the Jews? Like, seriously, what's their deal?
It's really hard to figure that out. People put forth theory after theory about where they came from, why they're the way that they are, but it's really hard to figure out what makes them tick. Why do they like raping little boys? Why do they like exploiting and selling white girls into sex slavery? Why do they feel the need to be the most racist people on this planet? Why do they actually view themselves as superior when almost anybody taking an objective look at the situation would determine that they are very ugly, very unvirtuous, very immoral, and not the kind of people you would want to be dealing with? Why is it that the Jews obsess over feces? What's the deal with the Jews? I don't know. It's really hard because when you're coming at it from the gentile perspective, none of these things are in line with your way of being. Of course, after years and years of media indoctrination, many people start to pick up the cues from these people and kind of adopt their culture in some ways, but it is not the natural way of our people.
Oh, or really any other people for that matter.
Well, our people meaning the Gentiles, yeah. The Goyim. If they want to be their little tiny fraction of a percent of the global population, call everybody else Goyim, well, then you've got a big problem on your hands, Jews, because, well, you've alienated everybody else. And, if these people ever, even just a small percentage of them ever get wise to what you're doing, well, it's the end. It is the end, Lou.
All right, thanks for listening. Play us out. This is Jew Boy.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, we'll be talking later.